Hi, my name is Aaron Schooler, team manager and rider for the Focus CX Team Canada, here with Cycling Magazine to tell you a little bit about riding through the sand. There's a lot of specific techniques riding through the sand. When there's lots of ruts forming like this, it usually means that it's somewhat rideable. Sometimes you won't get a sand pit that's rideable. There'll just be a lot of stepping or footprints stepping through the sand. But if you can ride it in a situation like this where you see the ruts, it's beneficial to try and stay on your bike as long as possible. If there's already a rut formed, then you're basically sitting in the rut on the bottom, the hard packed sand at the bottom of the rut. Ideally, you want to be going into it with as much speed as possible, which means it's already hard thinking about riding through a sand pit being a lot of work. Sprinting into it is kind of adding to the energy expenditure, but it'll benefit you in the long run. Being balanced on your bike, you want to be a little bit pushed further back on the back of your saddle. Hand position here, I prefer just to stay in the hood so you have control whether you need to brake or shift or whatnot. Some people tend to stay on the tops here, which pushes you're a little bit further back. It just doesn't give you control, braking, shifting, all that jazz. So when you're seated on the back of the saddle, what it does is it lightens up the front end. And you want to be over the rear wheel with a light front end, because if you're riding one rut and you kind of lose balance a bit and it shoots you out of the rut, you want to be able to lift up the front end quickly and put it down into another rut. So a lot of times you'll see me kind of like doing this little quick hop on the front end while putting the power down through the pedals. So the other thing to keep in mind when you're sitting on the saddle, it's going through the sand pit. If you start bogging down a little bit, but you're still able to keep riding through the sand, you're never seated right on the saddle. This is something that Sven Nys has said over the years. Riding through sand, you're not sitting on the saddle, you're kind of hovering over the saddle and putting all your power down through the pedals. So one of the things to keep in mind when you're riding through the sand is trying to stay above your minimum speed. Your minimum speed racing cross is basically the fastest speed that you can run. You want to be in a little bit of a low gear, pushing the power through. You don't want to be pedaling all the time, otherwise you're kind of hopping all over the place and you're losing your balance. You want to have a little bit lower of a cadence, high power, pushing the power through the sand. So anytime you're going through the sand pit, and you start losing a bunch of speed, or you mess up, or you kind of lose the front tire, you want to get off as quick as possible. You want to get off basically before that happens, so before that minimum speed. So maintaining your speed and getting off before you scruff it all off is way more beneficial than kind of either crashing or coming to a complete stop and then getting off your bike. Now, if you have a big section of sand in the race, you're not going to necessarily adjust your tire pressure just for the sand pit, because what if it's rocky and you don't want to be too low that you're going to flat on the rest of the course. I mean, when we race Coxida at the World Cup in Belgium, I've raced less than 20 PSI on that course. Usually it's around 18 to 20 kind of thing, which is quite low, but yeah, there's not too many sections where you're going to flat on the rest of the course. It's just a lot of sand riding. So keeping the pressure as low as possible without flatting on the rest of the course. Now the wax-based lube does a really good job of grabbing the sand and then shedding it off quickly afterwards. So a lot of times if you have an improper chain lube that you're using, it'll suck the sand in and it'll just stay on the chain the whole time. This is never a good idea because the rest of the course you're not riding in the sand. Although with the wax-based lube, you can go through the sand pit, you might hear crunch, crunch, crunch for the next 5 or 10 seconds after the sand, and then it kind of adjusts itself out. It pushes all the sand out, and then less resistance in the end. So.